Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Calvin-Smith. Tonight, the usually sleepy rural town of Zimbabwe's late opposition leader is filled with thousands of mourners. Crowds flock to pay their last respects at Morgan Tsvangirai funeral. Also, we take a look behind the scenes and studios of Dandal Kura Radio International. It broadcasts in Kanuri in a bid to counter extremist messages from Boko Haram insurgents. And more Tunisian women than ever are registering to run in long-awaited municipal elections due later this year. But despite a change in gender equality rules, many fear that they'll be facing an uphill battle in the polls. But first, the rural Zimbabwean town of Buhera was unusually packed on Tuesday as thousands turned out for the funeral of the late opposition leader Morgan Tsvangirai. Many mourners came from afar and on foot to pay their respects. Tsvangirai died last week after having spent decades challenging the status quo under former President Robert Mugabe. Catherine Viette has more.
A final farewell to the man known as the People's General. With his family gathered around, Morgan Tsvangirai was laid to rest in his rural home village, some 250 kilometers south of Harare.
My father was full of love. My father was humble. My father was a true leader, an original son of Buhera. I want to say farewell, Dad. Farewell, my hero. Your legacy will live and will never die.
The hero, the patriot, the visionary man, the statesman. Your legacy shall live forever.
It was a sea of red as his supporters wore the trademark color of the Movement for Democratic Change, the opposition party which Tsvangirai led for 19 years. During his long political career, Tsvangirai repeatedly challenged the ruling ZANU-PF party and its repressive leader, Robert Mugabe. Tsvangirai lived long enough to see Mugabe finally pushed from power in a coup last November after 37 years at the helm. But his death has sparked a bitter succession struggle within the MDC. 40-year-old Nelson Chamisa has been chosen as the party's acting leader for a year.
The character of humility, the character of working together, the character of driving a vision inspired of and by love. That is his legacy.
Tsvangirai's party is setting its sights on the upcoming presidential election, Zimbabwe's first without Mugabe at the helm.
Well, South Africa's new president is planning on giving public representatives lifestyle audits to make sure that officials aren't living lavishly beyond their means. It's all part of Cyril Ramaphosa's bid to clean up government as he tries to distinguish his leadership from the scandal-prone tenure of his predecessor. Jacob Zuma was forced to resign last week and replaced by Ramaphosa, who was then vice president. He said that the scrutiny of state workers will not stop at the executive.
If there ever has been anything that many South Africans would like to have line of sight of, is the lifestyle audit of their public representatives. Now, that is something that I believe we have to do. And this will be done starting with the executive of the country. The Commissioner of Police has also said that the high echelon of the police will also go through lifestyle audits. Now, that is positive.
An Ivorian man's been freed by a Spanish court after having been charged with trying to smuggle his son into the Spanish territory of Ceuta in a suitcase. Ali Ouattara is ordered to pay a €92 fine by judges after prosecutors dropped their initial request that he be jailed for 3 years. They found no evidence that Ouattara knew that the boy, who is now 10, would be trafficked in a suitcase. Ouattara had been living in Spain for several years at the time. He said that he'd paid smugglers to bring the boy from Melilla, another Spanish territory in Morocco, to Ceuta because he couldn't bear to be without his son. Candidates hoping to stand in Tunisia's first post-revolutionary municipal elections have started registering. This time around, there'll be more female names on the ballots than ever before because of a 2016 amendment to electoral law requiring an equal number of men and women within parties and on the election lists. But in reality, many women still feel that the odds are stacked against them. Our correspondents report.
At the age of 28, Ishraq has already mastered the skills of political communication and social media.
So, what am I posting on Facebook? The municipal roster for Ennahda?
Alongside members of the list from the Ennahda party, Ishraq has just submitted her candidacy at the municipal elections. The young woman is running for a working-class district in Tunis. As a university graduate who's been unemployed for the last 4 years, she wants to be the voice of the youth.
I live with my family in Sidi Hassin. I've lived through the same things as young people in Sidi Hassin. I take public transportation just like them. I look and dress like these young people who didn't have the chance to run for election.
Running as an independent was never really an option, and her party support makes all the difference.
When you are not famous, you risk not being elected. But when you run on the list of Ennahda, you have a better chance of getting into local office.
Tunisian politics is still very much a man's world, yet some women have risked forming their own independent electoral lists outside of parties, such as one in the region of Libya in Tunisia's northeast. But it doesn't always work out. Dorsaf was kicked off a list she started by a man she had recruited.
Me, I think they're scared of how capable women are, and they fear women who hold positions of decision-making power.
Despite the new gender equality electoral law, female candidates are unlikely to have an easy time of it. Some experts have already noted that political parties who are putting women at the head of electoral lists are doing so in regions where they already know that they're going to lose.
Nigeria's Boko Haram insurgency has made millions homeless and cost tens of thousands of lives. Dozens of journalists number amongst them. Despite the dangers of reporting on the extremist militants, one radio station continues to do so in the heart of the region, often targeted by the jihadists. Our correspondents report.
Security is tight at Dandal Kura's headquarters. Boko Haram made threats against staff members in a recent video. Women team members were described as prostitutes. Unperturbed, the show goes on. Today, like every Monday at 8 p.m, a programme about women in business is on the airwaves. Listeners call in with questions. But the callers are rarely women.
They are listening, but they are not participating because they are not calling us about the programme. Men are always calling us.
As the first Kanuri language radio station, Dandal Kura is popular with people in the city. This reporter spends several hours a week meeting with listeners and recording their feedback. Most of what he gathers goes out on the radio as part of a weekly show.
It is being heard all over the world, more especially our Kanuri brothers and sisters in Niger, Chad Republic, Central Africa, Sudan, Cameroon, and beyond. More especially Saudi Arabia, where you have a large number of Kanuri people living in Saudi Arabia.
The plan is for Borno State government to take over the financing of Dandal Kura from international donors in the coming years. The Information Commissioner says his government has already begun that process.
We are doing everything we could to give a sense of permanence to what they are doing. So we are giving them all the logistic support. We are even looking into the possibility of buying off the property where the radio is operating, so to donate it to them so that they don't continue to think about paying rent all the time and things like that.
The next milestone in Dandal Kura's journey is an FM radio station.
And festival goers in Niger have been celebrating the Festival of Aye. It's considered the largest Tuareg festival, and this year's edition in IVorian in the north saw delegations from all around the country heading up to take part. Algeria and Mali also represented performers to take part in cultural competitions. The festival started back in 2001 in a bid to boost tourism, but organisers say it also plays an important role in bringing together local youth.
For us, tourism is essential. It allows us to maintain stability in the region and to keep people busy, especially the young ones. The main danger for us is boredom, which is the source of all the problems we know, the source of all the migratory movements we see.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa for now. Thanks very much for joining us. Do so again. Take care.